Have you ever wondered what self-love truly means? Not the fluffy kind we read about, but the real, embodied, moment-to-moment kind that changes how you move through life. In this episode, I sit down with Kelly Bowker, a retired nurse who, after decades of living for everyone else, discovered channeling. And through it, a path back to her authentic self. We talk about the courage it takes to unravel religious dogma, to face the energy of unworthiness, and to finally love yourself enough to stand in your own light. Kelly shares how pain, guilt, and even sickness became her greatest teachers, leading her to the truth that feeling your emotions, every single one of them, is a doorway to freedom. If you've ever felt unseen, disconnected, or unsure of who you really are, this conversation is going to touch you deeply. Stay with us because this one might just change the way you see yourself forever. Kelly Bowker, thank you so much for joining me on the Oracle podcast. Super happy to have you and hear more about your story because I don't know you that well. You are one of Oracle's vetted practitioners. You are a channeler, energy healer. You also do some spiritual counseling. But let me ask you this, in this period of your life, what do you think is your mission? What are you trying to achieve, so to speak? And why is this important to you?
Well, at this stage in my life, as a retired nurse and teacher who has turned to channeling, developed channeling. I did not develop channeling until later in my life. It's only been in the last since 2022. But my mission is to really and truly become the most authentic version of myself that I can be. My journey is about me, and my guides teach me that it is through self-love and self authenticity and knowing one's own isness that we then will be provided the other opportunities like helping people, which of course I want to do. But my mission is to live a happy, joyful, abundant life.
I love that. And it's so funny. I think my mission is the same. And we all have lots of little missions, right? But
Yes.
being our authentic self is one of them. And it's very interesting how that can somehow be challenging. So we'll get to that in just a minute, self-love and self-acceptance. But let's go back to the beginning of your life story. When you were a child, what were some of the main themes that were present in your younger years?
Well, I was born to a 36-year-old mom, and my father was older than she, and I wasn't wanted. I was a mistake, and I lived my life basically knowing that. I mean, it wasn't that they were mean. My mom and dad loved me, but my mother had been a mom since she was 19 years old, and she didn't want to have any more children. And so when she found out she was pregnant for me, she actually prayed for a miscarriage. And so the energy of that definitely impacted me when I came into this earth. I know Mother Earth welcomed me, but I was born, I was sickly, and I made my mother's life hard. And the energy of that imprinted very, very clearly. I had tremendous issues of worthiness and being wanted and being loved, even though they did love me. And I went on as an adult to have a beautiful relationship with my mom. It was precious, enviable, truly. But as a child, what I now know looking back, I know that the programming that got laid down in those early years was very impactful through my entire life.
Sorry to hear, but it's such a common thing, I suppose. Not my
It
case,
is.
but many children, for whatever reason, are not as desired as you would hope. So how did that impact your growth, your teenage years and into adulthood?
Well, I was left home alone a lot back then. Of course, I'm 63 years old. So back then it wasn't as dramatic as it is now. People did leave their kids home alone a lot.
Yeah.
I was
They
I
weren't
was
sued
very
for it?
No, they weren't sued for it. They weren't worried about losing their children. It was just you basically fended for yourself. I was seeking that love and that approval, and I found God. I found Jesus at a very young age. And I'm from a very small town in Maine that is a Baptist town. So in my yearning and my longing and my seeking, I went there for answers, not with my mom and dad. I would find my own way there. I'm going to say the words, baptized with the Holy Spirit. I felt the Holy Spirit and I felt that welling and that love, and it felt so good. And I knew God loved me and I knew Jesus loved me. But this loving little heart would also sit in the pew and listen to the fact that all my Catholic friends were going to go to hell and all my Mormon friends were going to go to hell. And every thought I had was making Jesus cry. And I was born a dirty, rotten sinner. And all of that just was so conflicting. But because I had such a visceral, physical experience of God's love, of the Holy Spirit, now I understand what that was. I gave my heart to try to follow the doctrine that was laid out for me. So my life for a long, long time was filled with guilt, filled with never being able. So not only being born not wanted, then I lived a life having been convinced and brainwashed, quite frankly, to believe that I was always messing up. So I was racked with guilt and sorrow and sadness. But I had this knowing inside of me, thank God we are given the beautiful higher self energy that pulled me forward. It pulled me forward. I knew there had to be something more than this, because how could the love that I experienced when I prayed and when I communed with God and Jesus, how could that love be the same beings that all this awfulness was supposed to be coming from too? And it just never made any sense. But I
Mm.
followed the doctrine because I gave them the credit for what I felt. And that was my mistake. But
Mm.
I'm just thankful. I'm thankful that I figured it out when I did.
Yes, yes. So when did you put two and two together? When did you make that distinction between, I guess I'm going to call it spirituality and religion? And when was it clear for you?
The very first book I read that was channeled was by Neil Donald Walsh. I think it's called Conversations with God.
Yes.
And I didn't know that it was a channeled book when I bought it. And I bought it on a flight. So I didn't have anything else to read. So my dogmatic training would say, don't read that. That's of the devil. That's bad. But I didn't have anything else. So I kind of was perusing, and the voice of God sounded so familiar to me. It was that voice that I heard in my own heart and my own head, that it was like, but the dogma was deep. And even though that really impacted me, it didn't do the job yet. When I found Jerry and Esther Hicks and the law of attraction, probably when all your listeners, all the people that see this did with The Secret, and then I found Esther Hicks, the law of attraction and those basic teachings really finally let me let go of the dogma. It let me
Hmm.
surrender to the dogma. The problem with that is that it also left me wanting more. It didn't satisfy that longing that I had in my heart. How are you going to get the masses to turn to spirituality? Dangle a new car, a new house, more money. That's how, that had power in it during its time, and it's still a very prevalent thing. But it left me, I got to a point where my heart was still longing for and knowing there was something more to my life than what I was living.
When you read Neil Donald Walsh, did you then move away from the church and look to find more answers, or did you continue going to church? And how long was that transition? Because I assume you don't go to church anymore.
I didn't go to church. That really, I got the downloads of dogma early. And I basically, when I got married very young, I was just a week shy of turning 19. And my husband was not all about the church. And I now know, my guides have told me that it was very, very much divinely we were brought together. We were meant to find each other. So I lived my life trying to live by what I had learned as a child, that, the very black and white, right and wrong, dualistic, dogmatic view of the world. And I would almost describe it like, as a young person, my spiral was like this big. And then as I grew and as I went through my 20s and things kept coming in, I would happen into this meditation class and, oh, you weren't supposed to meditate. But I've, found myself there, invited by a friend, didn't really know what I was going to, and had an incredible experience. And so it just started opening. What people can know is that your team on the other side is working all the time to bring you to your true essence, your true path. I call it my due north. When I'm lined up with my higher self, everything cuts like butter. And when I'm not, it doesn't. So the dogma left with, because I struggled with guilt about the Neil Donald Walsh book. But when I finally embraced the secret and embraced the law of attraction, I was able to stop feeling guilty. And I was able to let go of those dogmatic beliefs, never dreaming in a million years I would end up being a channel. Never would have I would never have even dreamed that, but I could feel the truth of the words, the truth that was true for me at that time. And it was true for me at that time. It was a beautiful stepping stone to where I am.
So what would you say were some of the 2 or 3 most pivotal moments in your life, spiritual moments that really shifted you? Maybe reading that book, any other moments?
Yes, because I always have been a very happy person. I always was, upbeat. I read Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking, when I was like 12 or 13 years old. And so I've always believed in that, the power of my positivity and all that kind of thing, and lived that way until probably, I'm going to go so far as to say about 7 to 10 years ago. 7 to 10 years ago, my guides started turning up the heat underneath me. They wanted my attention, and they weren't getting it. And the way that works is life starts to really mess with you. So I started to get sick or injured, just steady, one thing after another. I started to be sad. I'm never sad. I'm just not cut out of that material, but I was sad. I felt I had a beautiful husband and a beautiful job and beautiful kids and grandkids, and I would sit in a moment of silence in my heart, and I was sad. I couldn't understand, why am I so sad? I just felt just horribly sad. So in this time, as they are turning up the heat on all the burners of their Kelly, I started to, find my way to getting better. I was getting sick all the time, pneumonia, influenza, bronchitis. I have asthma. And I got to a place where my breathing was so impaired that I Googled how to strengthen my lung. And I found the Wim Hof breathing, because I'd love to share that in my journey, I have read dozens and dozens and dozens of self-help books. And when I would get to the inner child part, I would skip it. And when I'd get to the meditation part, I'd skip it, because I couldn't meditate. And that inner child stuff was just crap. Now I'm the queen of both, quite frankly. But I started practicing the Wim Hof breathing. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's rounds of hyperventilation followed by hypoxia. And you do start to get in an altered state. I would compare it very much to doing plant medicine and those kinds of journeys. Not that I've done any of those, but I would get in that altered state, and I started learning to extend that altered state. And then I stopped needing the breath to do it. And it was my segue into meditation. And so I'm meditating, I'm trying to get healthy. And I finally confessed to my husband of, at that time, 39 years, that I wasn't happy, that I felt like I didn't know who I was. I just didn't. I was all the stories. I was the wife and the teacher and the mother, blah, blah, blah. But who was Kelly? Who was Kelly? I didn't know. I did not know, and I wanted to know. I did not know. And so I started some counseling. Once I confessed to Michael how unhappy I was, that's always a catalyst in my life of, now we got to get shit figured out. Excuse my language, sorry. And I confessed. So when I confessed, I got lined up doing some counseling, and she was an angel on earth, helped me so much. And I went like every other week through the summer. And I think it was in November of 21, I shared with her some of the experiences I was having because I was having wild experiences in my meditations. I was feeling touches, and I was touches on my hands, and I was seeing like orbs of energy flying around me. It's pretty freaky, to be honest. And I shared that with her, and she said, I want you to look up what it means to be an empath. And I said to her, of course I'm empathic. I'm a nurse, I'm a teacher, I'm very empathic. Oh, Kelly Colleen, I want you to look it up. So one of the things about the dogma that had still stuck with me was I stayed away from the metaphysical side of the internet. I didn't do that. I didn't watch those YouTube videos and things like that. And so I dive into the metaphysical side of the internet. Again, now I love it. And it was the thing that took the cork out of the genie's bottle. That was November. In January of 22, early January of 22, I channeled my guides for the first time. March, I did my first mediumship thing. It lasted over an hour, brought concrete evidence through. I do not practice mediumship any longer. I know my calling is to bring the wisdom of how to live this life and be happy. That's what my guides teach. That's now what I do.
How did your husband and your family take this? I mean, you said he wasn't religious, but this is also a bit out there for most people.
It's very out there, and it's gotten more out there as the years have gone on, I can tell you that. When I hadn't told him any of the big weird things that were happening in meditation. He knew I meditated. He'd laugh and say, oh, say hi to the angels for me, when I'd leave in the morning and go down to my bedroom to meditate. But when I did the mediumship, when I got home from work, my husband and I always have cocktail hour. He went to put the music on for cocktail hour, and I said, hon, we need to talk. Because every man who ever hears this is going, oh, the dreaded words, we need to talk. Every man that ever was born hates those words. And I told him what had been happening. I told him that I had done the mediumship and that I channeled. I was so naive at that time. I didn't realize that a medium and a channel were two different things. All of my mediumship experiences were I channeled the person that I reached for, which I didn't realize every medium doesn't do that. When I said to him, honey, I can't not do this, he had tears in his eyes when he looked at me and said, of course you've got to do it, honey. They chose you. He's a keeper. He's the love of my life. 44 years in, he is still the love of my life. He's wonderful. Mediumship is an incredibly beautiful and needed skill. And it's wonderful. It gives us the knowing that there is life after death, that our loved ones are right here with us. All it takes is a thought of them. I'm getting goosebumps down my side. They are right handy. They are right here. They love you still. They're right with you. And that's what mediumship does. But when someone like me does mediumship, I'm reaching for a personality, because we are just one fractal of our oversoul. We are a very small part. And so for me, what it felt like was I felt like I had to pull my energy in and focus it down, 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 down to this one little tiny fractal. Once I made that connection, then that energy would speak through me. So a channel means that I open to energy, and other entities can speak through me. And so that's what I did when I did mediumship. Most mediums are, I don't know if it's most, lots of mediums are not channels, meaning that they tune in and there's usually pictures, and you might get some words, you might get a sentence, and the medium's skill comes with digesting those signals and giving messages to the loved one that's still alive. And they can bring through beautiful evidence. It's wonderful. And it's a great practice. And it did help me on my journey because of the evidence, because I'm here to tell anybody who is beginning to have these kinds of happenings, you're not crazy. I said to my husband, what does crazy look like? What does crazy look like? I have no idea what it looks like, but I know I'm experiencing some things that feel very much out of my control and out there. So when I channel, I've learned to connect to my own consciousness, just shift it. Just doing that, my jaw shakes. Just doing that made my jaw start to tremble. They're ready to come through, but they always are. And so I shift my consciousness to the side, and then I begin to speak. And I think that the word is claircognizant. I'm all the clairs actually, because they use, I hear words in my mind, I see pictures, but it's blocks of thought and knowings that I have to find the words for. So sometimes when I listen to my channelings, because they're giving me tons of pictures in my mind as they're giving me these messages, and I do my absolute best to be a clear and true channel for this beautiful information. But you do your best, and I'm human, and they know that. And so that's why you'll hear the same message through different channels come in so many different ways, because it takes that human to digest the knowing and to explain it to the best of their ability. So did I do that? Did I give you enough on the difference between mediumship and channel? What I do want to do is the idea of when I open to this. And the question brings the answer. And so when you spoke earlier before we began recording about bandwidth, my bandwidth is expanding all the time. My bandwidth when I began was like this, and it felt like that. And then I would have a big happening, and they're not pretty when I get these downloads. When I say the word download, it's not block. I'm not talking about blocks of information. That's conversation that happens all the time. Download for me is when I get basically knocked backwards with energy. It's like it's like boom, 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 all this stuff comes through. And it doesn't take very long. And I often am clenching and breathing weird and holding myself and rocking and grunting, and my legs will come up and straighten. I mean, my body is undergoing a transformation, and then my bandwidth is bigger. And then it happens again, and it happens again. So it's fun. I love to talk with people who have lots of questions, because my guides can answer them. I'm not psychic. I'm not going to tell you, and my guides aren't going to tell you, should I marry Fred or Tom? But they are going to give you wisdom that teaches you how to know your own truth, how to know your own path. That's the key.
That's what I love about it. It's the empowerment that comes through with that, right? The teaching people how to find their own truth, how to heal themselves, how to trust themselves. And I get what you're saying in terms of mediumship, which is connecting with the deceased loved one, how you have to fit into a personality, which could feel constrictive. Whereas when you open yourself up to higher vibrations, you feel expansive, right? And full of love. And it's a really beautiful feeling. I'd like to perhaps go back to something you mentioned at the beginning, because I also read it on your profile, this concept of self-love and self-acceptance. Tell me a little bit about self-love and self-acceptance. Why is this so important to you? Why should we be thinking about this, understanding it? Why should we all be working on self-love and self-acceptance? What does it do for us?
It is absolutely the doorway to all of your power. It is the doorway. And so just a little bit of background. I did a very popular big podcast called Next Level Soul. And when I did, I hit the ground running, tons of appointments, tons of everything. But all of a sudden, I wasn't given any attention to me. And there were too many people, too many appointments, too much, whatever. And it made me step back, because I realized that I've been given this gift for me. And I utilize all of the teachings in my life, and I can model them for people, and I can share with people. But if you skip that integration piece, and people are waking up left and right. Their gifts of channeling and mediumship are coming online all over the world. It's beautiful and it's wonderful. But all I would say to people is, you and your relationship with yourself has to come first, because I can't fill your tank. I can't fill your tank unless my tank is filled. And if I try to, then my life and my energy starts to deplete, and it makes us vulnerable. And when you are a person who opens to the all, you need to be standing solidly in your sovereignty, because there are nefarious entities out there. There is that kind of energy. That's nothing that we have to worry about because we are sovereign beings. But to cycle back to the idea of self-love, because I was so unwanted, I had such deeply ingrained unworthiness that I had no relationship with myself. None. And I would read in these self-help books, self-love, you need to love yourself. And I can honest to God remember thinking, do they mean like putting lotion on? What do they mean by loving yourself? Having massages and manicures? What does it mean? I didn't know. And it has been a journey of knowing, but I do know now. I absolutely do know now. It is the relationship between me and me. It is me figuring out all of the aspects of my humanity. And my guides have given me so much of this. But we are a mental body, we are an emotional body, and we are a physical body. Those are the three pillars that make up our humanity. And there is an invitation from our divine body, from our sovereignty, to have a relationship with each aspect of our humanity. And that has been a journey that has unfolded. And learning how to communicate. I am only just learning how to truly use my physical body as the tuning fork and the antenna that it is. Our body is the thing that is, it's like the Geiger counter. It's the thing. You feel that and you're like, okay. Well, when you learn, what's going on, Kelly? What is it? What are you feeling? When we ask ourselves that question, when we say, feeling Kelly, what are you feeling? That immediately shifts ourselves into our higher self perspective. People call it the fifth dimensional perspective. It's the witness perspective, the observer. That shifts our connection. So then we can look at what are we feeling? How are we experiencing this? What do you need? When is the last time you asked yourself, what do you need in this moment to be happier? Most people haven't asked themselves that question ever. Kelly, what do you need in this moment? Well, I'm a little cold, and could you stand an extra pair of socks? And then the me that is me gets up and gets the extra pair of socks. Little things like that create the relationship. The guide started me with my relationship with my inner child because my inner child was wounded, as so many of our inner child is. That was the thing about the law of attraction that was so screwy. Think the better thought. Well, if you're coming into this present moment with all of this wounding and no one has taught you how to heal, how to connect with that part that has been so stuffed down for your whole friggin' life. How are you? Well, yeah, you can think the better thought, but you're never going to create the life that you want from that place until you embrace the all of who you are. And if I could give a gift to everyone who ever hears this recording, it is the simple act of putting your awareness onto the emotion that you're feeling transmutes it. People don't realize that. I listened to Bashar this morning. It was a beautiful, beautiful thing. And he talked about, and you have to heal, and he goes right on. And I'm like, but nobody talks about the how. How do you heal the trauma of the horrible thing that happened when you were little? How do you heal the ingrained belief that I had of my unwanted and unworthiness? You do it an emotion at a time. Your physical body will feel. You'd use your beautiful thinking mind to shine your awareness, to move your awareness. Oh, what are you thinking, Kelly? Your beautiful inner child comes forth and says, I'm sad. I'm sad. I feel sad. In just those three things, and breathe. Yep, I'm just sad. And it's a wave, and it comes and it goes. And then that energy form, that energy piece of that trauma has been transmuted. And that's how you heal.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I love it. I completely agree with you in terms of the how is often missed on how do we love ourselves.
I want to just see if this resonates with people. You're going along, somebody says something and it hurts your feelings and it makes you mad. Let's say it makes you mad. And you say to you, and this is what I would do because I was doing the law of attraction. Nope, I'm not going to be negative. Now, Kelly, you know you don't need to be mad at her. She probably didn't meet it. She's probably having a hard day, blah, 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 blah. Well, what I know is that that thought, that feeling is like an arrow of energy. And I stopped it. And now that arrow of energy is swimming around in my energy field. And I talked my egoic mind into feeling better, and I felt better. And I went about my day. And then something else little happens. Boom, the arrow. Nope, not going to feel that. Got to go up that emotional grid. I want to feel joy. I want to feel happy. I'm going to think about a puppy. Not going to feel that. They attract, and then more attracts. And then somebody says some little thing and you blow your crap because you've got all of the energy called anger that has not been expressed. All you have to do to express anger is feel it. See it, acknowledge it, and feel it. The anger comes and it comes in. I'm not saying tell the story. There's the magic. You go, what are you feeling? I'm mad. Okay, Cal, feel mad. Where are you feeling mad? Oh, I feel it in my jaw. I feel it in my chest. My hands are clenched. I'm mad. Yep, you're mad, Kelly. Feel mad. If I use my willpower to not tell the story, she did this and she said, no story. And I will hear my higher self in my head. And you guys will hear it too. Nope, no story. Only the emotion. What are you feeling? Then you'll feel the mad subside. And then you ask yourself, is there anything more? Yeah, she hurt my feelings too. Okay, let's feel that hurt. These are literally bringing these frequencies into resonance. When they come in, then once you have set and you feel it, this is the gift of our physicality. Your body will start to soften and you'll feel the big, okay, now I'm back to being Kelly again. Then you can do the positive self-talk. She probably didn't mean that. She didn't mean to do that. Whole different thing. And what my guides have said, because I've talked and my own beliefs were, if I feel the anger, I'm going to attract more anger. The only attracted thing is the suppressed emotion, the sadness not expressed, the anger, the hate, the grief. If they are not expressed, they are in your energy field and they are absolutely attracting. When you have made friends with all the parts of yourself and you are completely comfortable and aware of your higher self, your divine self. And when my divine self holds my humanness in her arms, which she does this a lot, holds right on to me and lets me feel whatever I need to feel all the time, the predominant attractive energy is love, unconditional acceptance and love. We have been lied to. We have been lied to so that we don't access our power. The energies that feed off of fear and unworthiness and all of that kind of thing want to keep us from our power. This, as I have begun to practice this has made me so I am so much more stable, so much more steady, and now ready to deal with the world. I'm ready to go back out into the world.
Thank you for that. That is so true. It's interesting because I think that there's a bit of a divide in terms of, should we feel the feeling? Should we transmute the feeling straight away? Should we feel angry? Are we going to attract more anger if we feel angry? That's what they say. I think we go through a lot of our days completely unaware with how we're feeling. And when we try and be in tune with our feelings, we don't even know how to do it. I don't think we take the time.
It's a huge step to self-love. When we ask, how do you love yourself? Start figuring out, what do you feel? When I started to sink into what did I feel, it's like, you know what? I don't like doing that. Why do I do that? Well, because Mike likes to. Well, guess what, kid? You don't have to keep doing that. I mean, honest to God, that is absolutely beautiful. But a big thing that people will do, and I'll try to make this quick, is it's the story. The story is the thing that we have to, don't feed the fire of the emotion.
Like
An emotion has come, look at it like a log. You throw that log into the fire of your awesomeness and you burn that into beautiful light and love. But if you're stuck in your head saying, she did this and she did that, it's more and more and more. And so, but if you process that emotion, it's going to be much easier for you to disconnect from the story and tell you and just be like, yeah.
Good. Great.
There is a
Thank
place for
you.
the story. There is a place for the
Yes.
story. In the healing of the inner child, the story is needed. But that is a whole lot to talk about that we don't have time for.
Okay. Yeah. So to kind of wrap it up, I mean, you've given us an idea of what a session with you would be like. You've kind of shared some of the tips and I guess exercises that one could do. But briefly speaking, how does the session go with you, practically speaking? You meet the person for the first time, you do online sessions, and then what happens? And how many sessions do people normally have with you? Once off or a couple of sessions?
Yeah. I mean, I've had more than one with a few people, but usually it's just one. I'd like to be able to say that I have this thing that I follow, but I surrender to the guides and the guides know what you need. I take a few breaths. I connect my heart to your heart. I connect our heart to the all, your higher. And quite frankly, when someone's made an appointment, just like you and I, our higher selves were together chumming the water to make this be an awesome experience before we ever got together. And so I connect. I know that our higher selves are working and I surrender. And something that was hard for me in the beginning, and I had to ask my guides, what is the responsibility of the channel to the message? And their response was, would you blame the ventriloquist doll for the words that come out? And I looked right up at him and said, you know that a ventriloquist doll's head is wood, right? And they told me I needed to lighten up. So yeah, I will ask a few questions. I usually say something like, if you had a magic wand and you could come out of this session with anything, what would it be? But then once I shift, the guides are going to take it and they're going to give you what you need.
Okay, great. And then if you had to say who would be your best client, I know you can help a lot of people, but who is the person that would get the most out of a session with you?
Question. I think I'm really good at holding space for that person who just feels lost. They just like life is supposed to be more than this. What have I missed? Why am I feeling this longing? This longing. That was the thing that was so prevalent in my dark night of the soul, was this longing to know who I am. And I certainly can help people figure that out. Yeah.
I'm sure you can. You've helped me.
Yay!
So, yes, yes,
I swear like a pirate. So I just need to
like
confess
most
that
people.
because sometimes naughty things come out of my mouth. And the
Yeah.
only spirit that's ever had issue with it was the fairies. When I channeled the fairies, they came through and said, "And we don't like your swearing. No, you're cussing." And I said to them, "You know I cuss. You know I do." "Well, we're saying we don't like it." I'm like, "Okay, I'm sorry."
I actually read in your profile, you can channel pretty much anything. And I really love, I can see it with you now and when we met and in your profile, you really are as authentic as they come, I think. I mean, you're really yourself and we can all be more of ourselves, but it is
Yes.
nice and beautiful and very attractive, when somebody is that way. So yeah, thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for following your heart, for sharing your journey, for being an oracle. And yeah, hopefully we'll chat with you again. It's been wonderful.
I
Thanks,
hope
Kelly.
so. I've completely enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Blessings to everyone who ever hears this.